Good evening, and welcome to the November 18th, 2025 Portsmouth Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. Meeting is in order. The first item of business is to remind everybody that if you are giving a presentation, we give you 15 minutes. If you think it's going to be more than that, please let us know first, and the board will vote if an extension will be allowed. If you're speaking to the public comments, 5 minutes. Limit yourself to 5 minutes, please. Okay, the first item of business is approval of the minutes of the October 21st, 2025 meeting. Is there anyone who wants to talk about this?
I'll make a motion to approve. I have some suggested edits if I get a second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Mantle.
I'll start on page 4 of the minutes, which is page 7 of our package. Discussion of the board. There's a long paragraph, and about 2/3 of the way down, I start talking. And I think it's my second or third sentence. It says, he said the applicant's lot was significantly bigger. Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. He said the applicant's lot was proposing significantly more coverage, but due to the slope would have little or no impact to the people on Woodbury Avenue. I think the big change there is adding the word but. And then in the next sentence, he said the house, I think it should say, he said the addition would also be set back. And that's all on that page. And then on packet page 10, timestamp 129:26, the fourth sentence. I think this is, it says Ms. Casella said they were all conforming but were not the correct distances. I think what she said was, but the correct distances were not shown on the staff memo.
Okay.
And that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any recommended amendments? And does the second accept these amendments? Mr. Mantle? Paul? Mr. Mantle, do you accept the amendments as your second? Okay, thank you. All right, then, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain?
So the minutes are accepted as amended. Approval of the October 28th, 2025 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve, but I do have one suggestion.
Okay, is there a second to Mr. Mattson's motion?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. On page 27 of our packet, page 12 of those minutes, in the second paragraph, at the second to last sentence of that paragraph, it says, he said the issue was whether it made or sense, and that should read more sense, doing it through an easement.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Graham.
Yeah, I have a couple of corrections as well. On page 2 of the minutes, page 17 in our packet, the paragraph that begins timestamp 25:05, 4 lines down begins the sentence, Mr. Rayom asked what the pedestrian pass to the retail in the back of the new combined building would be. I believe the word pass in that sentence should be replaced by the word access. So it should be, Mr. Rayom asked what the pedestrian access to the retail in the back of the new combined building would be. Second item is on page 4 of the minutes, page 19 in our packet. The paragraph under discussion of the board, timestamp 56:37. Most of the way through the paragraph, there is phrasing says, but his concern with what was proposed was that it segregated the pedestrian experience and created an island for the back property. Just to be more clear there, in place of "and," it should be a pedestrian island for the back property. So I had the words "a pedestrian" in lieu of "and." And then further down on page 7 of the minutes, page 22 of our packet, under decision of the board, the second sentence begins, he said it came down to creating the second driveway, especially because the applicant was burdened by 2 30-foot yards. To be a little bit, again, more clear, yards should be replaced by yard setbacks. So it's not that they had front yards of that size, that's what the required setback was. And then just one other question for Mr. Neese, I guess. At the very end of that paragraph, here's the sentence: Mr. Neese concurred and said that none of the public comment received by the board indicated concern that the structure would be split into 2 residences in the future. And I thought that was kind of just the opposite, so I didn't know if you had a comment on that.
I do.
Okay.
I have a suggestion. I'll start there. Page 22 of the package, exactly where Mr. Rayom was talking. I suggest revising the second to the last sentence that starts with Mr. Neese concurred to read as follows. Mr. Neese concurred and added that one of the public comments received by the board indicated a concern that the structures would be split into 2 lots with separate residences in the future. So it changes the none to one, and then add a sentence that said, he noted that the planning ordinance that do not currently allow an ADU to have separate ownership.
Okay.
Then I have another change back on page 3 if Mr. Rayom's done.
I am done, thank you.
Back on page 3, speaking in opposition to the petition, the first speaker was Peter Smith. The second sentence there, at the end of the sentence, I think it should read, or changed, except in conformity with the ordinance.
Okay. Any other?
And that's all I have, sorry.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. You accept
I
all of
accept,
the?
yep.
Okay,
And I accept all of them.
good. All in favor of accepting the minutes of October 28th, 2025?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody else? No?
Abstain.
Abstain. Thank you. Okay. So there is under old business, there is a request to postpone. So if we could have a motion to,
Madam Chair, I would move to accept the requested postponement with the stipulation that the postponement, the applicant will the application will be re-advertised at the expense of the applicant per the board's rules.
is there a second? Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Mantle. Any comments?
I'll just discuss my motion. This was a kind of a complicated situation where the applicant is putting a sign in sort of an area that's difficult to define, part of one property, part of another property. There was a lot of concern by the board, so we gave the applicant, directed the applicant, postponed it, directed the applicant to provide some information back. The applicant is still continuing to work on trying to gather that information. Does look like it will be changing the nature of what they need for variance requests. Therefore, the need to re-advertise is appropriate so that the public fully understands what the applicant is coming before the board regarding.
Okay, thank you. So let's vote on this. All in favor of accepting the postponement?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Can I do this first? Mr. Rayom will be recusing himself. So that means, I'm going to read it in first. The request of ZJBV Properties LLC owner and Jason McCallick, I hope, applicant for property located at 180 Islington Street, whereas relief is needed to establish a personal service use for tattoo studio, which requires the following. Special exception from section 10.440 to allow a personal use service. Said property is located on Assessor Map 137, Lot 19, and lies within the Character District 4L2 and Historic District. We are in a situation of having only 5 voting members on this. I think this might sound familiar. And in order to get a proposal passed, you need 4 positive votes. In cases like this, we allow the applicant to decide if they want to continue. No? Okay. I'm sorry.
Can you come to the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry, you have to come to the mic and tell us no.
Yeah, I would like to continue.
You would like to continue?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent, okay. Then, you're on.
Okay. My name is Jason Michalak. I'm owner of Speakeasy Tattoo Gallery in Peabody, Mass. We are looking to open a second location on Islington Street, at number 180. It previously was a tattoo studio called Worship Tattoo a few years ago. There's also a piercing studio next door in the same piece of property. We're just looking for a special exception to get the zoning changed over from retail to personal services.
Okay. Do you want to speak to the what do we call them, to the criteria for,
Yeah,
do you have that information in front of you?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
So obviously, our studio would be complying with all state and city tattoo regulations. We won't be making any alterations to the property itself, either outside or interior. Everything that was left there by the previous tattoo studio was pretty much exactly the same, I believe, except for the lighting. So, there won't be any detriment to the other characters of the street, There is two parking spaces on our side of the unit, one on the other. It's not a huge space, so, we're not gonna have tons of people in and out. So there's no traffic or safety hazard there, or excessive demand on municipal services. And other than that, yeah, I think I sent you guys all of the layout as far as the building and all that
You
stuff.
did.
Yep.
You did, we have all that information. Okay, I have to ask if there is anybody in the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Anyone who would like to speak to, for, or against? Is there anyone here who has questions before I close it?
I do.
Mr. Rossi?
Can you give me a little bit of background on the parking situation there? Because there really doesn't seem to be any parking, and,
Okay, so
I'm not sure the history of the conditional use permit that
So
reduced it to
from
zero.
what I
but-
understand, there was some sort of issue with the parking on the property itself before I had even spoken to the landlord. From what I understand, there are 2 parking spaces on the left side of the building, which is where the tattoo studio would be, and there's 1 parking space on the right side of the building, which is where the piercing studio is. And in front of the window on the left-hand side, I believe there's a sign there that says moped parking.
Yes.
I do know on the street that there is, I believe it's non-metered parking on, for 2 hours on that side of Islington. But as far as anything that went on before I, decided to do this a month or 2 ago, I'm not sure of what the situation was.
So there'd be capacity to park 2 vehicles on the property?
Well, I believe 3 total,
Okay.
or I may be
I mean,
mistaken.
for your use, I'm not counting the.
For my
the
use,
piercing
yes, 2.
studio. 2.
Yeah.
And what, how is that adequate for your business? How many people do you think would be in there? I mean, how does the business work? How does it flow?
Well, most of my employees now we work by appointment. We're not always working at the same time, so, my shop now is fairly large, but we're never always all there at the same time. I don't think it'll impose any, packing up of the street parking, if that's what you're asking. We don't mind going out and maybe moving during the day if we need to. But, I mean, it's not a giant space, so there'll only be a few employees in there.
So the 2 parking spots that are available would be utilized by the employees or by customers?
Probably by the customers, and, we'd rather not inconvenience the customers to have to get up and go move around, so.
And what's the capacity that you envision for the tattoo studio?
I would like to have 4 stations. We like to keep everybody's stuff in our own toolboxes so things aren't mixed together. But that doesn't necessarily mean 4 people will be working at the same time, if if that makes sense.
It does, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Then the public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
What would we like to do?
Can I ask staff how did this conditional use permit come about? What are the conditions? How did it get granted that the property could have 0 parking spaces?
There is parking, but it doesn't meet the standards of the dimensional requirements for what the standards would be.
So
we wouldn't count it.
the cups are usually associated with some kind of innovative land use or something, right? Isn't that the case?
It was granted by the planning board, yeah, they had to go to the planning board to receive the parking CUP.
I see.
And they received it for 0 spaces, whereas I believe 9 were required
Yeah,
for the uses on
it's a
site,
pretty big,
which was
it's a pretty
an
big gap.
overestimation, yeah.
Anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve the special exception as advertised and presented.
Second?
Okay.
Okay. So I'll go through those criteria. The standards as provided by this ordinance for the particular use is permitted by a special exception, and there was also a tattoo studio here before. No hazard to the public or adjacent property. This is a clean operation with industry standard equipment and everything, ink used for the tattoo studio. They'll comply with all requirements. And then for no detriment to property values or essential character of the area. Again, this was already a tattoo studio previously, and there's a piercing studio next door. It's a commercial retail streetscape along Islington Street, so it makes sense. And then no traffic, safety hazard, or substantial increase in congestion. We acknowledge that there is some concern with the traffic parking, but that was approved by the planning board, which isn't before us right now. And again, a previous tattoo studio had operated there. This is a small operation where even if there's 4 stations, they're not all operating at once, so it seems reasonable. And then no excessive demand on municipal services. Again, there was a tattoo studio there previously, so it would be similar to that. And in general, a tattoo studio isn't a very intensive use for municipal services. And then the last one is no significant increase of stormwater runoff, and here there's no changes to the exterior that would alter that, so it seems reasonable. And with that, I recommend approval.
Does the second have anything to add?
I concur with what Mr. Mattson said. Just second his comments about parking. Parking really isn't before us because the planning board has granted a conditional use permit authorizing 0 spaces.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay.
I'm not sure that the planning board authorizing 0 spaces for the property automatically confers that would be or automatically implies that would be appropriate for any conceivable use of the property. I remain concerned about the lack of parking for a retail application.
Okay. Okay. So, let's take a vote. A yes vote allows the tattoo parlor. Oh, I'm sorry, that
Right,
was,
yeah.
I thought, okay,
Yeah,
yes, please, go ahead.
Right. I guess so when I look at the special exception requirements, we're judging based on the criteria we have. None of the criteria is related to parking, because that is now under the planning board. And so when I look at it, it's the question of, does this create a traffic safety hazard or substantial increase in the level of traffic congestion in the city, in the vicinity, I'm sorry. Islington Street is a very busy street, we all know that. But I don't believe that a small business in this location, and there have been similar businesses in that location in the past, in fact, there was a tattoo studio there in the past, is going to lead to a significant increase in traffic congestion, which would be one of the criteria we would be looking at. So, you know, that's how I look at it, because it does seem a little odd that they gave the conditional use permit, but they did.
Yes, nevertheless,
Yeah.
yes. Anybody else?
I guess I would say that I don't have a specific stipulation in mind, but I would be open to some sort of stipulation if that was required. But I suppose we could just go with the motion as is and see. But
Okay,
Okay.
motion as is.
as is, okay.
Okay. Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mantle?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
I remain concerned that the lack of, lack of adequate off-street parking would potentially create a traffic hazard, but I take Mr. Neese's comments. I'll vote yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, you are approved. Okay. Do we get tattoos? And Mr. Rayum is rejoining us. Item A, under new business. The request of Ryport Properties LLC for property located at 2299 Lafayette Road. Whereas relief is needed to demolish the existing site and construct a new car wash facility, which requires the following. 1, variance from section 10.575 to allow a dumpster to be located 2 feet from the right sideline where 10 feet are required. 2, variance from section 10.5B83.10 to allow for parking spaces to be located between the principal building and the street. And 3, variance from section 10.5B22.40 to allow a building setback of 157 feet from the center line of Lafayette Road, where 90 feet is the maximum, and 125 feet from the sideline, where 50 feet is the maximum. Said property is located on Assessor Map 272, Lot 4, and lies within the Gateway Corridor District. Is there anyone to speak to this?
Hello, I'm Paige Widener with CESO. I'm the engineer for this project.
Welcome.
Thank you. Just to introduce, it is a car wash. Its business model is where you drive through and stay in your vehicle as you proceed through the car wash. And then upon exit, you can the customer can choose to go to a vacuum space and vacuum out their car before proceeding off the site. So the reason that we have this site plan laid out the way that's shown on screen, and I hope in front of you all, is to include all of the elements to allow the circulation to be as easy and as safe for our customers. So there are 3 different variances that we are going forth. Would you like me to explain the site a little bit more, or just go through those items? And
Why don't you tell us a little more?
sure, absolutely. So our customers, it is a membership-based program. So they are, they will typically enter the site through the shared driveway and go south to the pay station, where then they go south, and then they can take a left into the car wash, and that's where you go due north through. I've got elevations. It's an aesthetically pleasing building. We've put it in multiple different locations. Anyway, and then they can choose to either exit the site at that point or take a right. As you can see, that's where the parking is. We've got 4 employee parking spaces on the northeastern corner of the property, and then all the vacuum spaces are on the southeastern side. If you notice, one site feature of this property is that there is a wetland on the southwest corner, or true south, I should say. So that's something that we did take into heavy consideration when going through this design, is trying to mitigate our impact on that 100-foot wetland setback as much as possible. Based on the required site elements to allow this business to function, we are within that, and we will be going in front of the Conservation Commission. But that was part of the reasoning why we are going for some of these variances to try to condense the site as much as possible to impact that as little as possible. Any other questions?
Would you like to speak to the criteria?
Sure. So the first criteria, whether it'll be contrary to public interest, as to the off-street parking being in front of the building, we see that the layout is consistent with other commercial uses along Lafayette. Many of them have off-street parking or vehicle circulation areas between the building and the street. This design aligns with our established development pattern and will not alter the visual character of the neighborhood. And there has been green space provided around the parking for the option of natural screening for Lafayette Road. And it's, like I said, a visually appealing building, and will remain visible from the road and serve as an architectural feature for Lafayette. As to the location of the dumpster, which we are showing 2 feet off the property line, that left-hand side property line, it'll be surrounded by a 7-foot high enclosure that will have similar materials as the building. I believe that the detail sheet was included in the packet submitted to the board. And it matches, like, it will have no negative visual impact to the neighboring Taco Bell site, or those driving by on Lafayette. And then the requested variance for the setback of 157 feet from Lafayette Road is due to operational needs of the car wash, the additional setbacks necessary for safety, circulation, functionality of the business, and the allowed variance would establish reasonable and beneficial use of the property within the without detrimenting the community. As to the spirit, we are intending to observe the spirit of the ordinance, and we've thoughtfully designed it to limit the impact of the 100-foot wetland buffer on the rear of the property while still accommodating circulation. As far as the substantial justice to be done, granting these variances should not have, should not cause any harm, and it allows reasonable functionality of the property without creating any harm to the public or neighboring properties, whereas strict compliance with the ordinance would prevent the applicant from developing the site in the manner that protects the environmental resources and provides safe, efficient site operations. As far as the values of the surrounding properties being diminished, the placement of the dumpster, the location of the employee parking spaces, and the location of the building shall not adversely affect the value of the surrounding properties. Landscaping is going to be provided and incorporated to ensure compatibility of the neighboring uses. Sorry, trying to relearn how to read. As to the literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in any unnecessary hardship. So, as I said before, strict enforcement would necessitate continued or further impact on the 100-foot wetland setback to the rear of the site and conflict with the intent of the ordinance to protect sensitive environmental areas.
Are there questions for the applicant? Mr. Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess as the engineer, I'll start off with
Yes.
my more technical questions.
Sure.
So trying to understand this, you went over it a little bit, but I'm really trying to understand the traffic flow that you're proposing here. So looking at page 59 of our packet, it's your site plan C 3.0, very software-like. So you talk about the cars coming in, they go through the pay station, they come around, and then they can either go through the car wash or apparently then go into the area where the vacuums are located.
So in most cases, they will go through the car wash. We do provide a bypass lane on the rear of the site in case a vehicle an owner changed their mind and didn't want to end up going through the car wash for whatever reason, or if there was a equipment failure and we had to divert customers out of the car wash. So that rear bypass lane will not typically be used. So typical customers will then go through the car wash, and then if you look, I don't know a good way to basically, they go up, page up through the car wash.
May approach the screen if you'd like,
Okay.
if that would help,
Yeah,
but don't,
Jason,
don't
this Jason would
touch
think.
it.
And
Okay.
microphone.
And microphone.
Okay, so
Sorry. he
as
will be-
Jason
okay, he's
is
not
indicating,
talking.
the cars will come down through the pay station and then go up through the car wash. And at that point where he's pointing with his finger, they can either exit the site and be done, or take a right and go down and then park in any of those available parking spaces where they have access to a vacuum. Thank you very much.
So I'm just trying to understand, if I just wanted to use the vacuums, what's my methodology for getting there? Is there a methodology for getting there?
No, that's typically not the business model.
Okay, so I have to pay for a car wash if I want to use your vacuums. Okay.
Yes.
So you mentioned that the parking that's between the building and the street, which is what is before us, is employee parking. Is it going to be marked as such?
They're the spaces without the vacuums, so that's typically where our employee, because our car wash is where the customers will remain in their vehicle, and then the only real reason that we do have the option of Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a dog wash station and a car mat wash area, so that is an option for a customer would be able to park there in those rare cases, but we predict most of our customers would utilize the vacuum.
Yeah, and your Hang 10 dog wash certainly is an intriguing element to the business model that you have going here. I guess, again, from a flow standpoint, I'm trying to understand how employees get to the employee parking lot, because it looks like you have to go basically through the pay station, as far as I can tell, to reach the employee parking. So even if you just wanted to use, if your pooch is got it all muddied and you just want to use the dog wash, how do you get to those spots? I'm very confused.
I'm going to defer to Jason Rice with Hang 10.
Hi, Jason Rice with Hang 10. So the way our models work with the dog wash, they're not a token or a pay to go use the dog wash. The way it works is we have two different levels of our wash. We have a little kahuna and a big kahuna. Little kahuna is just a basic wash, and that's what you get, basic wash, and that's it. For a big kahuna, you get, and again, monthly membership, right? Unlimited little kahuna. Big kahuna, you get unlimited full wax and everything that goes with it. You also get a microfiber towel. You also get the use of the dog wash anytime you want. So for those big kahuna, what we've typically seen on our sites, they're going to come through, use the car wash, and then go over and use the dog wash.
Sure. Okay. So if the dog's dirty, the car gets an extra wash by default. If the car is dirty, the dog might get an extra wash by default.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
Okay. And then again, for the employees reaching that spot, like how do you do that?
Yeah, so when we've had this on other sites, we can let the employees through so we have typically our third lane is member only, and the second lane is member or credit, and then the first lane is kind of a pay door, kind of like the Chick-fil-A model, where we have employees that come out. We have employees that greet all of our customers that come through. We would just let the employee through, open the gate. They would go through the bypass lane where we have that coned off, and that's how they would get to the employee parking. That's what we've done on other sites. I know it seems a little, herky-jerky, but that's what we've done on the other sites because of the one-way coming in and out of the vacuums.
Yeah. So you're the Chick-fil-A of car washes. Got it.
No.
And then we have
I would love to say that. I can't.
Okay.
I'm not saying.
and then
That's
we
kind
have-
of like hollowed ground, I feel like.
Sure. And then we have Big Kahuna, which is just bringing up to me Pulp Fiction, but we won't go there either.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the business. So since I have you up and talking,
Yes, sir.
It says it's headquartered out of Seabrook, New Hampshire. I did go to the website just out of curiosity, and it looks like the closest current one is actually in Worcester, Mass. But there's a lot of them in the southern part of the east.
So we have a partner that's got some in Virginia. There's 4 in Virginia, and then we have a site in Somerville, just outside of Charleston, South Carolina. We've got a number of sites in Florida and some more in Florida that we are developing currently, and then we have the Worcester site, and we have a number of other sites up east this direction, including one. We were at Whitman, Mass. last night for a meeting. that we're working on. So the owner, we had a focus, he had a land acquisition team. I think they enjoyed going south and looking at property more than being up north. And now he is saying, listen, we need to come back up home. So,
Okay. Yeah, and I did notice that, at least on the Google site, that it said that the Worcester store is currently closed for, is that for the winter or?
It's under construction.
Oh,
Currently under construction.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. But the intent is it would be open year-round?
Yes.
And most likely usable year-round?
Yeah, so our wash is up east, up here in the cold. We have air doors that are fast closing, so they can close behind a car to keep the heat in the tunnel, obviously for freezing. And then on the exit of the tunnel, we typically put a boiler piping system in the concrete so that there's no freezing for any water that goes out. The other thing with our wash, the way that we do it, we have conveyor belt, kind of like people movers at the airport. So instead of pulling into your slot for your left tire, we don't have that. We have a mat that's this wide that you just pull your tires on as soon as your front tires hit it, put it in neutral, and it pulls your car through and takes you. The thing that does at the end of the tunnel is it stops water way before, because we end up drying the car and then you roll through the tire shine, and so it eliminates a lot of the water that comes out of washes at the end, because we have essentially about 30 feet to 40 feet of the tunnel at the end that you're getting dried and then rolling through wash. So, but we do put boiler system in the concrete.
Okay.
So,
I'm glad to give you an opportunity to get some free advertising in on what your business
Yeah.
was. So towards that end, I guess, so one of the things that we challenged a different applicant out in the other end of the city, up on Woodbury Avenue, in the past couple of months, is, you know, part of the reason why we have this requirement of distance back from the center of the road is a desire in our new gateway neighborhoods to kind of reverse the traditional business model. I know that some of your arguments are, hey, we kind of look like other businesses that are in the area. I think as a city, we are trying to say, yeah, but we want to rethink what our gateway districts look like. So we want to move structures closer to the road, parking behind them. It's kind of the genesis for what we have. I'm trying to understand what you did, because when I look at your website, and I know you said it's aesthetically pleasing, I guess I will leave that. You know, it's in the eye of the beholder. But, you know, this kind of looks like the standard layout that I'd see for some of your other stores. And I'm just trying to understand, you know, was there any attempt on your part to try and look at our ordinance and see what you could do different from your standard model to try and, you know, move the structure closer, try and reconfigure things with the lot, especially since I did notice one corner of the structure actually is within the 100-foot wetland setback, and I know you said that was really important, is to avoid that. Why were you not able to move the structure closer to the center of Lafayette Road?
are we with the structure? Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, so we did a couple different variations to try to get it to work, but with our circulation, with the paid door and without having to take, because there's that 40-foot setback and taking pavement closer to the road, with the kind of the S that kind of goes through to get through our wash, it kind of stops the ability from moving it farther forward. Because again, kind of coming out of the wash, you kind of have to have the smooth and enough of a radius to get back to your vacuums. Same thing from the pay station. You got to have a certain radius, otherwise, you know, giving people plenty of room so that they can make the turn to get into the wash and out of the wash. And then we try to leave a straightaway, both going into the wash and out of the wash, to line your cars up. And so we did try to rework it a number of ways, and this was the best that we came up with.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the 40-foot front building setback is, you know, for building structure, and maybe staff can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but certainly like pavement and whatnot, I think could still end up in that area. Was there, you know, is there something that's driving why your pavement needs to be in there in terms of like the entrance and exit point that you have on Lafayette Road? Is that anything that's driving this?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we would be fine with moving, if it was able to move pavement down towards Lafayette Road and we could move the building, that would work fine. I think we were trying to match kind of Cumberland that's next door with the green space that they have with the kind of the 40-foot. And the same thing that's going on with the Taco Bell next door.
Okay. And, we have our requirements here on this board. There may be more that during site plan review that may come up as well. I was just curious what was driving at least in terms of what you're seeking for relief from this board, so.
Yeah, we did a work session, a pre-development work session with staff, and this is kind of the best we came up with. Our building is actually, I don't believe is the corner of the building. It might look to show right here in that 100-foot, but we had talked to the conservation about where we can move it. We kind of adjusted some things based on that to try to get everything as close as we could.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Neese?
Could you explain a little bit how you settled on the location for the dumpster? And, I mean, it needs a setback relief. It
Sure.
looks like there's other areas on the property where possibly you might not have needed a setback relief, but you didn't choose those for some reason. I wonder
Sure.
if you could explain.
So
what
the
reason was.
location of the dumpster, next to that shared drive entrance allows for the trash truck to pick up the dumpster. So it's not just a matter of the small amount of, it's 12 by 12 pad that the actual dumpster's enclosure. It's providing an adequate amount of space for the maneuverability of the trash truck. So any other space on site would require much more impact on that wetland setback. So having it be kind of tucked up on the north side of the property allows the trash truck to get to it with as little pavement as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
So, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Just,
see you.
just for clarity, you're saying that you could move the entire structure closer to Lafayette Road?
I mean, we would have to move everything. We just would have less stacking.
I feel like in early conversations with staff, there was a reason that we needed the 40-foot setback of the pavement. I apologize that that's not coming to mind the exact reason now. But if that is not,
Yeah, that's what.
if that is not limiting us,
Do you know anything about this?
we could explore the option of moving the entire site page north. Do you agree?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I remember them being very wanting to keep that.
There was a reason, and I do apologize that off the top of my head.
Do you want to add anything? Can you add anything?
I mean, I wasn't part of that meeting or discussion, but I'm just looking at the turning radius at the driveway access. It could have something to do with that and stacking people getting out, in and out of the driveway.
Given the encroachment on the wetland setback, I think that that imposes kind of a higher, in my mind, a higher burden on allowing a variance to bring the structure farther than our requirement from the road. So I haven't heard a compelling hardship case.
Yeah, I guess, so I have less of a problem with the dumpster because I understand the logic with the less pavement dedicated to that and everything. I guess my concern is, so our ordinance would want you guys to have the structure closer to the street and hence further away from the setback. And it seems like your explanations are why it needs to be back where it is, which would bring it closer to the wetlands. So I guess I'm struggling with connecting that.
Yeah, I think for the dumpster enclosure in itself, when we look at the site and its access for the garbage trucks to kind of get in and out.
I'm just saying, yeah, the dumpster thing I don't have a concern
Oh,
with.
you
It's,
don't?
that's one of the variances.
Okay.
Another variance is about how far back the structure is. You're requesting 157 feet, whereas the ordinance would only allow it to be 70 to 90 feet back.
Yeah. I
So
just don't
it's
remember.
circulation is why from the face of curb on the north side of our of our pavement to the face of the building. That's kind of set based on how our customers have to circulate safely. But as far as why we're set back the 45 feet, that's something that I believe that we were dictated based on what was out there existing. But like I said, I'm not sure on that one. I unfortunately don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak to, for, or against? Okay, then the public hearing is closed. Anybody? Oh, I do want to tell you that in the announcement, the part that says under number 3, and 125 feet from the sideline where 50 is the maximum, is not germane to this application, because that is for properties closer to the bypass.
On
the bypass.
That was
bypass.
in the, yeah.
So,
mhm.
while it's in there, it is an error. Okay.
So I have a question for the chair. Would we be considering each variance separately, or must we consider them
That
together?
would be up to the motion maker.
I'll just start with a comment, I guess, is, yeah, so I mean, I've got nothing against the concept of the car wash, and I totally get it, is what's there is very much typical with what's being proposed, but the ordinance has changed, and it is to incentivize a different format of development, with getting the buildings up closer to the street. I do understand there's, at the end of the day, it is still a car wash, and it's still car-oriented, and there needs to be a flow for the cars through that property. Yeah, I'm just weighing that.
I'm going to speak. I guess the other building was 154 feet setback. I think if we put a building 90 feet from the center of Lafayette Road, it would stick out like a sore thumb. There is not one building on the street that's like that. And I guess if we waited long enough, they would fall in line with this change to the zoning ordinance. But right now, that's not the case. Also, some of that 157 feet is green space. And I think if they moved the building closer, it would have to be pavement in order for the cars to have room to move around. And they have spoken of their landscaping. So for me, I think that's a friendlier frontage on Lafayette Road than solid pavement. So that's my take on it.
I agree with you. I'm not concerned as much with the frontage as I am with the encroachment on the wetlands setback. Wetlands setbacks are important to our city's resiliency in the face of unpredictable water flow and tides and things of that nature. It's very important.
It is, and they're going to the Conservation Committee, so I'm assuming that that will be their purview. And other than that small part, I thought there was quite a lot of effort made to avoid the wetland. Mr. Ram.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just, relative to what you're saying with regards to, well, first of all, the current property that's there, the old Advanced Auto Parts, they were the old model, right? They were the buildings out back, the parking's right up in front, and that's what the setup was. And I agree, it's very common because that's what was encouraged, right? I think from a vision standpoint, we want to try and encourage something different based off of a lot of feedback that we got through, charrettes that were done and discussions and going through the character district process or character districts process, all the things that kind of led to, the idea that this is our gateway to our city. We want to start developing a newer sense of what that's going to look like. And you got to start somewhere, right? Because if we say, well, this kind of looks like the old stuff, why are we, enforcing the new thing when it looks like the old stuff? Okay, then the next person comes along like, well, hey, I still look like the old stuff. Last guy looked like the old stuff. You're just never going to get there, right? You have to start somewhere. That said, I think with this particular application, here's my thoughts is, first of all, this use that they're proposing is, requires a conditional use permit, so they will be going for the planning board for that. I don't know if the planning board will approve that use through the conditional use process. We will see. It's not under our purview. It's not a special exception or a variance, so it's not under our purview. But, and again, the planning board, when developing the new gateway districts, kind of wasn't sure about some of the uses and kind of said, well, we'll put them in there for conditional use to see if we think they're compatible or not with the new vision, and we'll see if they feel it is. If they feel that it is, the site plan, again, is primarily Conservation Commission somewhat, but Technical Advisory Committee and the Planning Board really get the major say in the site plan. And I didn't want to, through my questioning, I didn't want to overemphasize that, but to try and really understand the placement of the building. I mean, I certainly understand the traffic movement with the way that their model is set up. Do they need to have the employee parking between the building and the road, or could they sacrifice some of their vacuum spots and kind of put it there, or that could incentivize trying to move the building forward? I guess is the question that we kind of have here. If we want to say, you know what, we don't want any of the parking in the front for our ordinance, figure out some way of incorporating it into your other portion of your property, we could potentially go and do that. The other aspect to this is, no matter what, just doing the math, I mean, even if they encroach into the 40 feet, and I don't know why, there might have been a feeling like they needed to continue to keep the green space. And don't get me wrong, there's pluses and minuses to having the green space there. We were just trying to say, hey, move stuff closer. Their circulation is going to invariably result in some kind of distance between the building and the road. And if you do the quick math of they're currently 157 feet, there's 40 feet of setback there. They're never going to get there, right? Even if they were able to push it right up front, you're still not going to get between the 70 and 90. So I think no matter what, this application will require some relief. I would hope through the site plan process that, as indicated, there, a lot of their current layout and turning areas and a portion of the building all appear to be kind of in that wetlands setback. And I would hope through the Conservation Commission and the site plan process with the planning board, that would get worked out, and either they shift things around or perhaps, make the situation better. But I think no matter what they do, they're probably never going to get within what the ordinance is calling for. Last part is the dumpster. I mean, I think I can live with the dumpster location. With just looking at the site overall, it been really accessed by a servicing company. I think it makes sense. They're going to try and screen it. It's kind of a wide open area. I'm not too concerned with the fact that the dumpster is, could they move it a couple feet further away? Maybe, but what would be the practical impact of that is probably pretty minimal. So those are my thoughts on this.
Not a motion, though, huh?
Not a motion. Emotion, perhaps, but not a motion.
A little. Anybody? Anybody?
I just have a question of clarification. I think there's a little conflict between the staff memo and what they say about where this dumpster is. I think their letter says the dumpster's on the left side. The staff memo says the right side. We do it looking at the property, right?
Correct.
So it's the right side. They
On the
did
right
it
side.
as looking at the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on the right side.
That's why mariners refer to port and starboard.
Yes.
Always gets very confusing otherwise.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion, and with what Mr. Rossi said, I'm going to break it up into, well, why don't we do all three pieces, I guess, separately. So I would make a first motion to approve variance number 1 from section 10.575 to allow a dumpster to be located 2 feet from the right side lot line where 10 feet are required, and we can start with that
Is there
one.
a second? Okay, Mr. Merrill.
we'll take the easy one first. So, I think we had some discussion on it. I think overall, as a board, we're pretty well convinced that the request is probably a reasonable one, and I'll go through the criteria to validate that that's the case. So, our first two criteria come together. The grant of variance would not be contrary to the public interest, and grant of variance would observe the spirit of the ordinance. Again, the commercial uses throughout this Gateway District, although we are trying to introduce more residential uses, but almost all of them require, dumpster services at some point. The properties, in this particular case, it's a relatively long, narrow property, and there is also burdened by wetlands in the back. So, the exact location of it varies from property to property. I think what we're really looking for is something that makes logical sense for the neighborhood as a whole to keep the essential characteristics. The applicant has indicated that the position that they're putting it in, it is going to be screened. It is, a little bit distance from an existing restaurant use, which also has a dumpster area as well. So I don't think it's going to, look out of place or be, extraordinarily contrary to what we're trying to accomplish with our ordinance. Grant the variance would do substantial justice. Again, that's our balancing test. Is there anything in the general public needs that would outweigh the applicant's desire to put it in this location for an ease of use and be in a logical location on their property? I don't think so. Again, passersby on the street are probably not going to even notice it. The neighboring, using the services of that business or the neighboring properties, it should be hidden and not really something that would be of a significant consequence to the public in general. Grant the variance would not diminish the values of surrounding properties. Again, the location of the dumpster being somewhat closer to the property edge is unlikely to negatively impact the other business uses that also rely on dumpsters that are nearby. And then lastly, what are the special conditions of this property? Again, a long, narrow lot, burdened by wetlands to the rear of the property, and kind of limits some of the options where you can get some realistic access for a servicing vehicle to be able to access the dumpster without having to traverse through all kinds of strange ways of getting there. So I think the location is probably the most logical based off of the layout that the applicant sees as necessary for their business model. So with that, I recommend approval.
Does the second have anything to add?
Nope.
Is there any discussion? Okay, this motion is just on the dumpster. Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mantle?
Yes.
Mr. Rayam?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi, thank you. Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Hey, I'm still better than he was. For the
Yeah, and Jeff?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so you have a dumpster. Okay, sorry. Yes.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion for the third variance, which we recognize as a variance from section 10.5B 22.40 to allow a building setback of 157 feet from the Center Island Lafayette Road, where 90 feet is the maximum.
Okay.
And recognizing that the second portion of what was presented for that is not applicable to this property, I recommend that we approve that as presented and advertised.
Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Mantle.
All right, again, we talked a little bit about this. I do think that there are desires in our ordinance to get buildings closer. Really, what we really want is a screen, right? We want what people see when they're driving up through our gateway neighborhoods is we want to see a building. We don't want to see parking. We don't want to see other things that are going on the property. We want it to have more of a suburban feel rather than a wide open feel with just parking everywhere, and that's the first thing that you see. It's going to take time to get there, but that's the vision that we've laid out. That said, and again, it will depend upon the conditional use permit being approved by the planning board, but if the planning board does agree that this is an appropriate use for this parcel in the Gateway district, this particular one being our G1 district, then really at that point, the applicant, I think, has made a good argument that if you're going to have a car wash here, with the amenities that we provide, using our business model, it's vehicle circulation is a big driving factor The actual structure itself is a relatively small portion of what's being taken up on the lot here. And so with that, I think it makes sense that it's going to have to be set back more than what we are envisioning. I think they, through the site plan process, I am hopeful that they move it closer to the road, because I do think that, whatever we can do to ensure that the sensitive areas behind this property are fully respected is important. But I also, I think that the technical experts on the Conservation Commission, the Technical Advisory Committee, and in the Planning Board will do everything they can to make sure that that happens. So within the confines of what we're looking at for our ordinance, I think this makes sense to do. So granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, and granting the variance would observe the spirit of the ordinance. Again, from a spirit of an ordinance standpoint, we're trying to go to a new model, but at the same point in time, I think there needs to be a recognition that certain uses, if allowed, just don't necessarily fit very well, especially with this particular parcel being sort of a relatively narrow but very deep, or relatively deep parcel. That's going to cause the lineup of the building to be, in line with that, right? Especially when you're looking at the traffic circulation. So that's just going to kind of drive this location for the structure. So I think in that more broader view of what we're trying to accomplish with the zoning, it isn't going to be in keeping with the characteristics of where we think that the G1 district should be going. In that more broad sense. Granting the variance to do substantial justice. Again, the general public purposes of the ordinance for this particular application for the car wash use, I think that the applicant's need for vehicle circulation does outweigh the ability to have the building being closer. So in that sense, the substantial justice test goes to the applicant. Granting the variance to not diminish the values of surrounding properties. Again, this will kind of potentially remain going forward a more unique structure, but again, kind of unique use probably in this area. So, it will provide a little variety, but will not necessarily, I don't see it impacting property values as a result. And then what are the special conditions? As I mentioned, it is a relatively narrow, relatively deep property. Again, it is potentially burdened by some concerns with vehicle access, vehicle queuing, coming in and out onto the busy road of Lafayette Road. I do know that there is some setback requirements as well for any future expansion, although again, I don't think that's necessarily driving everything here, but that could be one factor as well. It is, along a corridor that there is, potential future expansion concepts on. So I think there are some unique factors there, and then just the use as well, which if it is granted through the conditional use process, I think just simply drives this need for vehicle circulation, which is then driving the need for this particular variance. So with that, I recommend approval.
Nothing to add? Okay. So this is a vote about the Lafayette Roads. Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment before we vote. So I guess, yeah, so basically I've been convinced, so mainly, I guess, if there's gonna be a car wash, I understand that this layout will be it, so I will be voting in favor with the hope that the, planning board with the conditional use permit kind of decides for the vision of what we have. But just, if this is gonna be a car wash, this layout makes sense, so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I would also like to make a comment before casting my vote. Actually, when I saw the proposal, I was kind of excited because that abandoned building there is pretty much of an eyesore, and almost anything that's done to, do something productive with the property is certainly an improvement. And my concerns are not with the appearance from the road of what's being proposed here. My concern is I don't really see a solid case for hardship for granting the above maximum allowed setback. I don't think there was a clear case presented for that, so I will not be supporting the motion because of that. Thank you.
Okay. Ready?
Can I just make a note that there was a recommended staff condition for you to consider?
I just looked at that. Okay, let me just go back and hold on. I'm sorry.
Page 54.
No,
Yeah,
this.
So addressing that with my motion, I mean, I guess we certainly had plenty of discussion that we understand it's going through the site plan process. It may change. I think it's implicit in our, it's implicit in our approval, I guess, if others feel strongly that we make it a direct stipulation. But I think lots of our discussion, we recognize that the building may change somewhat, and in fact, we kind of encourage some of that. I thought.
Yes.
Yeah, just sort of a minor point, but I'll add it. I'll support the motion. I originally was concerned about whether this is really in keeping with the spirit of the ordinance, given the requirements. We've had a lot of discussion about that. I guess my problem a little bit with the ordinance is acting like the only development that's going on here is housing in this area. And so it's kind of silent to some extent about how to deal with proposals like this, which is why the planning board's decision of the conditional use permit will be important. But I would also point out that currently the sidewalk on Lafayette Road stops before it gets here, and their project does include a sidewalk, which is one element which does promote and is a little bit more consistent. Admittedly, it's minor, but I think it's important, worth noting that.
Does this need a playground like the gas station?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes?
Well, as long as everybody's weighing in on this one. I don't see any problem with the project. This project would need variances under the old zoning. It's a car wash. It's a car wash on Lafayette. Having 3 parking spaces that close to the road doesn't bother me. Again, it's totally against the spirit of the ordinance. And if you want to take your stand on the ordinance, it should have been done with the property next door, who needed 8 variances to basically put the building exactly where it was, a restaurant and a gas station, when they could have moved it 20 feet from Lafayette and complied with all the zoning. This is going to be a problem regardless of where it goes, regardless of the old zoning or new zoning.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready? Thank you, everybody. Okay. A yes vote approves the setback from Lafayette Road, and only that. Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mantle?
Yes.
Mr. Rayum?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
No.
And Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. Next.
Done quite a
You
bit of heavy
done?
lifting. But yeah, I'll take 2/3 of the duty, and then leave
Okay.
somebody else with the
All right.
last third.
So what's left is parking spaces to be located between the principal building and the road. That is the part that we have not yet dealt with.
I'll do it.
Okay.
For variance item 2, variance for section 10.5B 83.10 to allow parking spaces to be located between the principal building and street. I make the motion that we approve that variance as presented and advertised.
Is there a second?
So I want a second, but then I'll ask a question after he gives his rationale.
Okay.
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 Do we have a second?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a second. So, to be stated, all of the zoning changed 10 years ago, possibly. I don't think it's been that long,
I think it's been.
especially the extension of the gateway districts. So, granting the variance for these parking spaces would not be contrary to the public interest. Definitely won't be. I don't think the public would care. Granting the variance would observe the spirit of the ordinance. Now, spirit of the ordinance is, I understand we don't want parking spaces between the principal building and the road because we redesigned the entire gateway to be more pedestrian friendly, which is great. First, you got to get the pedestrians there. And pedestrians are not walking down Lafayette Road. Number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Yeah, it's a car wash, and the employees need to park someplace, and granted, they could make changes. I don't think it's going to change the nature of the variance. So granting the variance would do substantial justice. Number 4, granting the variance would not diminish the values of surrounding properties. No, it won't. Having a thriving business near a car wash? No. It'll be fine. Now, 10.233.25, little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. Well, yeah, it would, because it's a car wash. There are going to be cars. There are going to be lots of cars. I don't think 3 spaces that close to the road is going to be a big deal, considering how we just abandoned the ordinance for the property next door 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That would have been the test for the ordinance, not for 3 variances here. I don't believe that moving the parking to the back of the property and redesigning all this, as I said, they've come with a program. This is their program. They say it works. I'm not going to question that. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Mr. Neese.
You know, I'm just going to be a little bit pedantic here. I support this motion. The reality is these 4 spaces are not between the building and the street. They are offset to the side, and they are not in front of the building. And the language in the ordinance is very clear. It doesn't say closer to the street than the building. It says between the building and the street. So, you know, I support the motion, but I would argue that I'm not convinced they really need this variant because of the location of the spaces.
Yeah, you're
Yep.
right. Yeah.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
Yeah. I always appreciate Ms. Neese's pedantic sensibilities, certainly. I mean, I think the intent of the ordinance is, certainly how staff is interpreting it is pretty clear. I am somewhat torn. I mean, do I think these spaces are the be-all and end-all of what we're trying to accomplish with the ordinance? Probably not. At the same point in time, they have 24 vacuum spots. Do you really need 24 vacuum spots, or could you suck up 4 to 6, because it actually is 6 parking spots here. If you count them up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Could you absorb the 6 spots amongst your 24 vacuums that you have? My sense, I think that probably could be accomplished. That said, is it worth being that picky about it? Probably not. I'll give it on it.
Well, being a fan of pedantry, I will go with Mr. Neese's comments as being compelling.
Okay. This approves the parking next to, aside, between the building and Lafayette Road. Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mantle?
Yes.
Mr. Rayo?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, and you are approved. All right. Item B under new business, the request of Peter Gamble, owner, for property located at 170 Aldrich Road, whereas relief is needed to demolish the existing detached garage and construct a new 2-story garage, which requires the following. 1, variance from section 10.521 to allow A, 7-foot right side yard where 10 feet are required, and B, 25% building coverage where 20 is allowed. Said property is located on Assessor Map 153, Lot 21, and lies within the Single Residence B District. Is there anyone to speak to this petition?
Hello, Madam Chair and the rest of the board. My name is Peter Gamble. I am the owner and reside at 170 Aldrich Road in Portsmouth. I respectfully come before the board to request a land use application. There has been a little history with this property. I came before the board in 2023 for 3 different meetings, culminating in a deny without prejudice for the purpose of resolving a land dispute issue. It's been 2 years. That dispute has been resolved through adverse possession. My neighbor actually acquired 919 square feet of my property. So now we have actual numbers that actually show accurately where we can go forward with my request. My proposal is to expand a 24 by 24 garage to a 26 by 30 garage with a partial second floor, essentially a story and a half, for the purpose of creating more parking space in the garage, workshop area, workout, and recreational space on the second floor. The original garage was permitted and built in August 4th of 1978, and that was a sketch plan that showed a 12-foot side setback. And to make sure that setbacks were accurately depicted, I hired Ambit Engineering to do a full survey of the property. And this depicts that survey. That's the initial survey right there. In trying to design this project, the existing garage has a slab-type construction. In order to do another floor, you have to actually have a regular foundation system. And talking to the building inspector, the best way to do this is to essentially take down the existing garage, build around the structure that's there to build the garage that I'm proposing. And that will require, based with the new survey, seeking a variance from section 10.521 to allow a side setback of 7 feet where 10 is required. And essentially, if you do all the math, it's essentially a 24.4% building coverage, with 20% is the maximum allowed. The current building coverage is 22.4%, so essentially this will be a 2% increase. I will show that this property is essentially a lawful non-conforming structure for use of over 60 years as a two-family home. In that district, two-family homes aren't allowed at this point. It has been my primary residence for the last 19 years. The current garage is a one-story and is in need of repair and updating. And as you know, but for the record, I'll say the RSA 674.19 protects lawful non-conforming uses and prevents new zoning ordinances from impacting all lawful existing uses. Non-conformity protection apply to both the principal and accessory use of the property. This position does two things. My proposal essentially allows me to try to do something with the accessory building, but also in the single residential zone, it prevents any additional living spaces because I already have a two-family home. So the point being is that I want to make it very clear that this proposal isn't to add another dwelling unit. The proposal is consistent with the properties that have recently updated existing accessory structures as permitted by the SRB district. I have some specific properties that I'll show very close to my area that have improved their properties as well. If you go to the next slide, that shaded area shows the area that changed that happened between the original survey and the new survey based upon the adverse possession situation. Next slide shows the deed. The next slide shows the original permit and the process that went through on that. So if you go to page 8, next page, this shows the sketch of where the original side setback was 12 feet, but tax map had it at 4 feet. That put me to the position where I did the full survey to make sure we knew exactly where things were at. The next page shows the requested setbacks, and it shows the dotted line shows the 26 by 30 garage. As you can see, it's to the back of the lot, and it stays within the confines of the house itself. The rear setback was impacted by the adverse possession situation, but didn't fall outside the zoning with the 35 feet. And the side setback, you can see where it's at 9 now from the existing structure, and request is to have it at 7. Next page. This shows a uniqueness to the property. I'm on the corner of Aldrich and Boss. And about 10 years ago, they did a complete reconstruction of Aldrich and this portion of Boss. And what I'm pointing out here is that there's a right-of-way that the curbs show the outside lines, but the right-of-way is actually area that's maintained by me and mowed, certainly not the sidewalk, but there's a substantial amount of square footage there that still gives it the presence of open space and light and a larger lot than essentially one that might not be on a corner. The next page shows the calculation that I did for determining the lot coverage. Essentially, it's The new lot size is 9,992 square feet, so it makes any square footage increase a pretty simple math problem. The increase is essentially 204 square feet, so it's an increase of 2% over the 22.4 that's there to go to 24.4. I will point out that even though I'm in the SRB, the GRB, the GRA, is just a couple houses up from me on Aldrich, which that standard is a 25% lot coverage. The next slide shows a picture of the existing structure. The next slide, I have a very unique situation in the sense that I have a big hill in the backyard. So that protects the view of neighbors. I mean, you can't really see down into my backyard unless you're standing up on top of the hill. And the stakes down there essentially show where the increased garage proposal would be. Next slide. This is more of one right behind the garage, where essentially those stakes show the 6-foot increase, and you can see where it doesn't encroach further behind where the back of the house is now. Next slide. This just shows those areas that are maintained that are part of the right-of-ways. One is on the front of the house, and the next one is along the side of the house. The next picture shows the actual proposed garage that I'm going to build. It's unique structure, and essentially it's a post and beam, so it does require a little bit larger foundation setting so you can put the beams, because you essentially built the beams on the inside of the foundation and you build any kind of insulation and sheathing out from that original structure. This is the floor plan. Next page. I have a Denali pickup truck, and I can't even park it in my garage at the point now. But I do a lot of work in the garage, and I'm trying to get to a point where I can park as well as do work in the back part, and then allow the stairwell to go up into the second floor. The second floor, there is plumbing requested. There'll be a small shower bathroom up there because this would primarily be a workout, and I do a lot of biking and running. I have treadmills and trainers, and I do use that. And also, it's sort of a sports memorabilia place from my dad's days and his time frame was playing sports, and my kids, and I have 4 kids all in the local area. So it's kind of, that's the process. Again, it cannot be used as a living unit, so I want to make sure that's very clear. This is just, the next couple pages show structural aspect to the post and beam. This shows the height on page 22, which is 23 feet and 5 inches at top. Page 24 shows the upstairs actually area, so you can kind of see, next page, the open space area, which is how it will be kept. And the next page shows the downstairs area. We would have the garage area, and you have the workshop area in the back. On page 25. That's all right. We'll go. I can go to the so this is going to show some lots that are near me. I'm the one in blue, and I have 4 other pictures of similar proposals that have improved their lots with garages, with plumbing, and it's all done well, and it's all still in the standard of the Aldrich Road neighborhood. So the next picture is one of the houses right next door to me, which has now connected their garage. That was initially a single floor, flat top roof garage, and they turned it into story-and-a-half garage with an additional connection to the house with a bathroom in that connection. There's another one on 161 Aldrich, which was a single-story garage turned into an art studio upstairs, again with plumbing. This is right across the street from me. All of these uses have actually really done a great job for the people who have been living there. This one here, 55 Aldrich, this is 3 houses up across the street from me, and there was no garage at all there at one point, and then they built that and connected it to their existing building. And the last one is a recent garage ADU structure that was done. Again, I cannot do ADU, cannot do living unit because I have a 2-family and want to make that clear. So as far as the 5 criteria, 1, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. The project is in line with the public interest as the structure was permitted in accordance with its ordinances back in 1978, and this new proposal improves and updates the code to code the current structure that is permitted in the SRB district. It does not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, threaten public health, safety, or welfare, or otherwise injure public rights. 2, the spirit of ordinance will be observed. Spirit of ordinance will be observed as this project is in line with the current use of the property and consistent with surrounding properties as depicted in this proposal. Number 3, substantial justice will be done. Substantial justice will be done as this proposal will improve upon the existing permitted garage, bring the structure to current code, and allow the needed parking space, workshop storage, workout recreational area. Number 4, the values of surrounding properties will not be diminished. This property will increase the value of surrounding properties. This is consistent with the improvements going on and completed in the Aldrich Road area. Little enforcement of the provision of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. The SRB district requires 15,000 square foot of coverage, yet there are very few properties in the neighborhood that meet that standard. If the property in the neighborhood, the property is unique as it does have approximately 2,000 square feet of additional open space because of the whole area of the right-of-ways for the town on the road, both on Aldrich and Boss Ave, yet maintained by me. It is also located close to other residents on Aldrich Road and allowed to have 25% coverage because that's there in the GRA. And that's, again, on the northern part, or the eastern part of Aldrich Road, that's half of that's GRA. The improvement of this accessory structure in line with the neighborhood improvements to include additional space, proper building code, and with minimal impact. In the spirit of the ordinance, not granting relief would result in hardship inconsistent with the surrounding properties. Thank you. Any questions?
Other questions? Mr. Ram?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And sorry that you lost your adverse possession case. Certainly a cautionary tale on
Yes.
being careful that your neighbors aren't openly and notoriously using what might actually be your property. Looking at page 99 of our packet, so that's your photo of your side yard. I want to just validate, you're saying through your calculations, you think there's about 850 square feet of that, what looks like your side lawn, that is really city property, but
Yes.
essentially feels like part of your
And
property.
I had Ambit actually run the numbers on that
Okay.
to know where that was at.
Yeah, and by my math, at any rate, you're going to be 5% over the coverage requirement. 5% is roughly 500 square feet. So if that was your property, you would have the 500 square feet you would need to be within after your project is completed.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone who would like to speak in, yes? Hi.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Ned Reynolds. I live at 110 Aldrich Road. That was my new garage and ADU that was featured there. I'm happy to come down tonight and wait an hour and a half to just say that I support my neighbor Peter's application here, project. I think it'll be a nice project, and as he said, certainly won't detract, but rather will enhance the neighborhood, and I urge you to approve it.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition? 2, 4, or against? Okay. Public hearing's closed. And I just want you to note that there are 5 letters in favor of the, yes, Mr.
I'd
Ross.
like to make a motion to approve the application as presented and advertised.
I'll second that.
Ooh, everybody wants to second it.
Made the most popular
motion of
Oh,
the evening.
man, we'll go in
David's got
alphabetical
it.
order. Mr. Mattson.
Oh, okay.
Okay, going through the criteria, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, and granting the variance would observe the spirit of the ordinance. One of the intents of the ordinance with regard to setbacks and even with lot coverage is to maintain adequate light and air in the surrounding properties. In this case, the structure is very well separated from any other structures. As the applicant pointed out, the topography of the surrounding properties, particularly the one behind it, when looking at it from Aldrich, really preserves views for everyone, and there is nothing about this proposal that's contrary to what the ordinance is trying to achieve here. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. There is really no loss to the public by allowing this project to go forward, and therefore the loss to the applicant of a denial would outweigh the benefit to the public of a denial, and this criterion is satisfied. Granting the variance would not diminish the values of surrounding properties. As has been pointed out, the project is very much in keeping with what is going on in the neighborhood and consistent with the renovations that have been made in very nearby properties. I can't imagine, and nor has any information been presented to this board, which would support a conclusion that granting the variance would diminish the values of the surrounding property, and therefore this criterion is also satisfied. Literal enforcement of the provisions, this is the hardship criterion. I think there are special conditions associated with the property. It is a sub-sized lot relative to lot requirements. Also, some of the lot was lost in the legal action, and so the lot coverage does have some constraints that are imposed on the property owner based on those conditions. As Mr. Rayum pointed out, visually there is a strip of city-owned property that makes the lot appear larger. That weighs in favor of maybe taking a lighter touch with regard to lot coverage. And finally, the sort of engineering desire or requirement to create a new foundation does logically and necessarily edge the structure closer to the right side property line to create a little bit less of a setback than had been there. Again, because of where the property is situated and where the structure is situated, it's nowhere near any other structures on surrounding properties, and therefore those conditions being unique to this property all justify all satisfy the hardship criterion with regard to this proposed project. That is my motion.
Thank you. Mr. Mattson, do you have anything to add?
Yes, just one minor thing is I'm a big fan of the post and beam structures, and the reason that's relevant is I think it's a sign of, it's more of a premium upgrade compared to the standard garage, so it's no concern about diminishing property values, and also in terms of it being in the character of the neighborhood, it's a tastefully done proposal.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion before we vote? Okay, then a yes approves the new garage.
Yes.
Mr. Mannel?
Yes.
Mr. Rayum?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So you are all set. Okay. Item C under new business.
Oh my gosh.
The request of Sean M. and Catherine M. McCool, owners, for property located at 345 Leslie Drive, whereas relief is needed to demolish the existing front porch, construct a new front porch, and create livable space within the existing carport, which requires the following. 1. Variance from section 10.521 to allow A, 27.5% building coverage, where 25% is the maximum. B, 7-foot right yard where 10 feet are required. And 2, a variance from section 10.321 to allow a non-conforming use. I think I'm gonna, before, under variance, under A, variance number 1, it is not 27.5, it is actually 21%, because some of the building that had been counted in that was actually under 18 inches. So that is a change.
But
Okay, not
25
20.
should also read 20, so it's still required, or is that?
Still required.
Still required.
Yeah.
So anyway, not 27.5, 21.
What?
Maximum is also
Maximum's 20.
Maximum's 20, so it's...
Not 25.
Apologies, yes.
No. I'm sorry, do I understand the question?
They're essentially asking for the same thing, but they're
Right, but
just different numbers.
it's much,
So,
few percentages smaller,
what- okay,
which can sometimes...
what's the final? That, what,
21%,
21 is the
Where
final?
20 is required.
Okay.
where 20 is
So,
required.
get
so
2
the,
errors and
Before that, we had,
so the table is correct.
Table is correct.
yes, yes,
It was noticed incorrectly.
okay. Welcome.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is William Sherry. I work for Hazeltine Builders. I've been on the job for about 2 weeks, and I'm meeting Sean and Catherine McCool for the first time here.
I hope it's
Because
going well.
Nick Hazeltine, our boss, couldn't make it because of a family commitment tonight. So, and it's the first time I've done something like this, so I appreciate your patience. The McCools are the owners of 345 Leslie Drive. First off, I want to thank the staff, in particular Jillian, for your help working with our staff and answering all of the questions and working our way through this process. The original house was built in 1956. It's currently a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that's just under 1,200 square feet. We're all aware of the housing challenges that we're facing as a society, in particular young families and access to available housing and the ability to make and find more housing. The McCool family is hoping to renovate their home in its existing, within its existing footprint to provide some more living space in the house. Essentially, they're looking to add about 387 square feet, which would include a bedroom, a bathroom, and a mudroom. They would be doing this, they're seeking the variance to do the work on an existing non-conforming lot. Again, the house was built in 1956. So there's no increase to the overall footprint of the house of the work that's being done. In addition to helping the McCool family, we believe these improvements will increase the value of the home and provide benefit to the neighborhood. There's no encroachment to other properties, and there's also no addition to any impervious space on the lot. If you like, I can run through the responses to the variance approval criteria. Yes? Okay. The variance must not be contrary to the public interest. We feel granting this variance will not be contrary to the public interest because the owners of the property are looking to use the existing footprint of the dwelling for the purpose of a single-family unit for their space. And they won't be going any closer to the property line or use the property for anything other than a single-family dwelling. The spirit of the ordinance is observed because the homeowner is looking to better utilize the footprint of the space that they have to live comfortably. They don't need the current overhang in front of the garage. They can use the space more so by creating interior dwelling space. Substantial justice will be done for the homeowners because the space we're adding inside the home will allow them to live unencumbered by adding a primary master bedroom and an additional bathroom to the home. Not only will this add additional living space, but also increase the value of the home and the homes around it in this neighborhood. The values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished due to adding a more appealing exterior look to the home, and adding a bedroom and bathroom will increase its value and the surrounding home's values along with it. Literal enforcement of the provision would result in an unnecessary hardship, essentially due to the need of preventing this family from keep maintaining their current space and the ability to live there and expanding their space. The lot constraints would not allow for any other additions to be added in a manner that meets all the setback requirements without completely changing the layout of the property and the dwelling. It also does not add any further impervious areas to the lot. The variance would allow for the residents to gain better use of their current existing footprint without further impacting any other building requirements, as we would not get any closer to the lot lines. I believe that you have some of the design drawings up in place. It's the easiest if we just go to the pictures and go ahead one more. You can see that's the open space, which is currently a carport, and that would be closed in. And then what is now essentially a single-car garage will be turned into living space. Next picture, please. One more. And that's the back deck, which is essentially ground level. And one more, please, if we can get to the frontal view. Nope, never mind. If you can see where the front deck is now, that'll be moved over slightly, essentially in a new entrance near where the house will come forward. And that'll actually be smaller than the current footprint. That's all I have.
Okay.
Sean, do you want to say anything else? Or?
Sure. Just to
some context. We've moved here.
Please come right to
Sure.
the mic and tell us who you are.
Yes, Sean McCool. My wife Katie's over there. We moved here 11 years ago, and we got married the same weekend that we bought the house. Did not have any kids then. Now we have two, an 8-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. So it's just about a growing family and being able to provide each person with their own space. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes, Mr. Rayam has a question for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My one question is associated with parking. So the staff report indicates you currently have three spots with removal of the garage and carport area. The staff report indicates you will still have 2 parking spots. I just want to make sure I understand where those parking spots can be located on the property.
Sure. So they are right in the driveway there. Right now, the stairs go down out from the house. On the plan, we're actually having the stairs go kind of down along the front of the house, kind of down the side to the side yard, to preserve that parking space.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Anyone who would like to speak to, for, or against? Okay. Yes, Mr. Reese.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please do.
I'd like to make a motion to grant the variance for the right yard setback relief for the application as presented and advertised, and to grant a variance on building coverage of 21% where 20% is allowed.
Is there a second? Mr. Mantle, thank you.
Just start off, this is a very modest change to the property, which is making good use of the existing footprint. And I think it's a good design to increase the use of the house without having very much impact on anybody besides themselves, in a good way. Anyway, working through the criteria, granting the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. Because it's basically the same structure externally, it will not affect the health, safety, or welfare of the neighborhood. No effect on light and air, does not alter the essential characteristics of the neighborhood. It observes the spirit of the ordinance. It's a single-family dwelling area. It's remaining single-family dwelling area. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. There's no benefit to the public that I can see by denial that would outweigh the harm to the applicant, should we deny. If we deny the variance, they're left with coming up with a way to try and improve the livability of the house with a growing family. Granting the variance would not diminish the values of surrounding properties. There's no change in footprint. It makes more usable space. If anything, it'll probably increase the value of surrounding properties. Literal enforcement would result. Literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. There are some special conditions of this property to point out. The primary one is the location of the existing structure is very close to the right side lot line. The lot is undersized for the zoning. The availability of the current space with the carport makes it very convenient for reuse with minimal impacts on anybody. Owing to these special conditions, there's really no fair and substantial relationship between the purpose of the ordinance to protect light and air, health, safety, and welfare, et cetera, and specific application to this property.
Very
Mr.
good.
Mantle?
No, nothing
You
to
all
add.
set? Anybody?
I only wanted to second it so I could say the names Mr. and Mrs. McCool. Now I'm
Good.
satisfied.
I'm glad you're happy.
Yes.
Let's start over here. Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Rayam?
Yes.
Mr. Mantle?
Yes.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. You are all set. Okay. Item D, under new business. The request of Kelly Ann and Kenneth Rassicote, I hope, for property located at 34 Marin Avenue, whereas relief is needed to construct a porch on the right side of the structure, which requires the following. 1, variance from section 10.521 to allow a 3-foot right yard where 10 feet are required. Said property is located on Assessor Map 222 and lies and Lot 33 and lies within the General Residence A District. Is there anyone to speak to this petition?
Hi, good evening. My name is Ken Rascott. I'm owner of 34 Marne Ave to talk about this project. As noted, we are requesting a variance to increase a porch on the right side property. Property is 7,405 square feet, and as you can see, it's oddly shaped and was called a pork chop by this committee at a previous meeting. So given that, we are asking for a porch that encroaches on the setback from that angled corner lot there. And the porch size is 8 foot by 16 feet. And that one corner of that porch does encroach in that line. So creating a setback of 3 feet from 10. Going through the criteria for the variance, granting this variance will not be contrary to the public interest. We don't think that this will cause a disturbance to the public interest. We're actually creating a social space outside where there isn't one. I think this will improve communications and social aspects with the neighborhood. 2, granting the variance would observe the spirit of the ordinance. Again, I think we're improving the property in general, improving the porch and the social aspects of it. And in addition, we had considered at one point having a porch in the front, but we moved it to the side to kind of keep it off to the side. And there is no porch. There's a small porch now. I think in keeping with the neighborhood, it's pretty typical to have a porch. Many are bigger than this, actually. Point 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Excuse me. Again, I think improving the porch on the side adds to the social walkability of the neighborhood and social interaction with the neighbors. 4, granting the variance will not diminish the surrounding property values. My wife Kelly in the audience there and I have purchased the property about 5 years ago and have been in continuous improvement mode. And we feel that this is yet again another improvement to help the property value of ours and hopefully the neighbors as well. 5, denial of variance results in unnecessary hardship. I found this one a little bit hard to answer, but I think that my wife loves to watch the dogs in the neighborhood. So if you say no, she can't watch the dogs in the neighborhood. So that's the best reason I could come up with. Thank you. Take any questions.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Rossi.
Thank you. Sorry, David.
Nope, go ahead.
Yeah, when I was looking at the property today, the side porch that's there already, the tiny porch, surely that is not 10 feet from the fence.
It is not. I'm not sure if it's 10 feet exactly. I haven't measured it myself.
Yeah, it just didn't seem accurate to, that the existing condition is stated as having a 10-foot setback. I'm trying to figure out to what extent this variance really decreases the setback versus what's currently there. That fence is on the property line, is that correct?
It's on the property line, correct.
Yep. It's just eyeballing it. It looked like it was, the existing condition doesn't seem to be 10 feet unless there's some reason why that side, the little side steps and porch there wouldn't be counted.
Introduce yourself, please.
Yes, I'm John Bailey. I'm the building contractor.
Yeah.
No, the little side is not 10 feet. It's more like 8 feet.
8 feet, huh? Maybe
It's about 8 feet to the corner of the porch. Yeah.
Okay, so we're really talking about going from an 8-foot to a 10-foot, even though that's not how it was advertised. I mean, to a 3-foot, even though that's not how it was advertised.
And that may have been an error.
Yep, that's okay. It's an error kind of in, it's the corrected version of it is kind of in your favor. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Rand.
Well, I had the same question as Mr. Rossi, and I guess my only follow-up would be to staff. Do we know why that was indicated as 10 feet in the staff report?
So,
I can't find where that measurement was provided, so,
That may have come from an old survey.
Mike,
That may have come from an old survey before that porch was there.
I believe that porch was there before this property line was carved up like it is in 2016.
Yeah, we're just wondering, obviously it's there now, when this application came before us, the existing condition is, and we're actually trying to help you, believe it or not, but your existing condition is, you're closer to the property line than the 10 feet. Our staff report says, hey, you're a fully conforming property, you're now asking to be something that's far less than fully conforming, when in fact, I don't think you are fully conforming, and I think that's what we're trying to get at, and trying to understand how we got to that point.
Yep, exactly. Precise.
Mr. Neese.
Yeah, I just point out, if you look at Map Geo, it doesn't, the city's Map Geo doesn't have the porch on it, and the corner is about 10 feet. Corner
So,
house is
okay, so
about
that's
10
where,
feet.
that's where it
It could be where it
originated.
came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the porch has been there for a considerable period of time, right? It's not like
It has,
something you
yes.
just constructed.
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak to, for, or against? Okay. The public hearing's closed. Yes, Mr. Ross.
I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the variance as presented and advertised.
And Mr. Mattson is seconding you.
Okay, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, and also granting the variance would observe the spirit of the ordinance. We are able to take those two together. There is no public interest to be served by, denying the variance. This is off to the side of the property. It doesn't impinge upon the public's enjoyment of walking down Marnie Avenue. So therefore, it complies with not being contrary to the public interest. Granting the variance would do substantial justice, again, because there is no impact on public interest or no impact on the public's ability to enjoy the surrounding properties or the streetscape or anything like that. This satisfies the criterion for the balance of interest test on substantial justice. Granting the variance would not diminish the values of surrounding properties. What weighed into this, in my opinion, is there is a substantial fence separating this property from the property next to it. I don't think that extending the porch out to within just the corner of it is going to be within 3 feet of the fence. It's not like completely bordering on the lot line, and therefore I do not believe it will have any impact, nor was there any data presented to us to indicate that it would have an impact, a negative impact on surrounding properties. Therefore, this criterion is also satisfied. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. Here, hardship is maybe defined legally a little bit differently than what you were thinking when you were trying to come up with your answer about that. Hardship really is related to unique aspects of the property that make it difficult to comply, unnecessarily difficult to comply with the ordinance. And the unique aspect of this property is summed up in the two words that you used, which is pork chop. It definitely has a very odd shape, and because of the way the lot line angles toward the house from the front of the property in that area where you want to build the porch, it pinches off the right rear corner of the structure. That is a unique condition of the property that militates in favor of granting this variance, because having to comply with that 10-foot setback would really mean that you couldn't do anything with your structure on that side, and it serves no purpose to force that issue. Therefore, this criterion is also satisfied, and that is my motion.
Mr. Rossi?
Yeah, I'll just,
Mr. Mattson, sorry.
just to reiterate, because of the regular shape of this lot and the angle of that property line, it's really only a corner, a small corner of this porch that's actually imposing. So the effect, the feeling is far less imposing than what is proposed on paper. And then from that corner that's imposing, you have the fence, and then on the other side, that neighbor has a garage structure there that's also shielding. So the general purposes don't apply here for this unnecessary hardship.
Thank you. Any conversation, comments before we have? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'll be supporting the motion. I think just one other point is sometimes we're concerned with a 3-foot setback of maintainability of the structure, but as indicated here, really it's only in one tiny corner. There's still plenty of room to set up ladders and other things to maintain the structure on the other two sides of it because of the odd shape of the property. So I think that that concern is also militated. Militated, is that the word?
I don't know if I would use it that way, but
Thank you.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay, are we ready to vote then? Yes. Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mannel?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. You are approved.
By the way, my wife and I walk our dog there all the time. He really likes dog bones.
Okay. Item E, the request of Brian and Margaret Colrain for property located at 61 Lawrence Street, whereas relief is needed to construct an addition in place of an existing deck and partial reconstruction of the second floor of the existing home, which requires the following. Variance from section 10.521 to allow A 25-foot rear yard where 30 feet is required. B, 27% building coverage where 20% is the maximum allowed. And 2, variance from section 10.321 to allow a nonconforming building or structure to be extended, reconstructed, or enlarged without conforming to the requirements of the ordinance. Said property is located on Assessor Map 152, Lot 28, and lies within the Single Residence B District. Is there anyone to speak to this petition?
That'd be me. I am Brian Corain. I'm the owner of 61 Lawrence. I'll give a quick, just brief of the project, and then I'll run through the 5 criteria here. My wife and I purchased the property earlier this year. We've been in the neighborhood for 6 or 7 years now. It's currently set up as a multifamily. There's an apartment upstairs. Our intention is to convert it back to a single-family home, as we have 3 small children. The mudroom and staircase and back deck in question right now has access to the second floor where there was an apartment. It was a second egress. That will be going away in hopes of creating some bedroom space for the whole family to sleep on the same floor. And then using the existing footprint for the deck to create an enclosed entryway so I can stop tripping over shoes and jackets in my kitchen. The setback right now is, as you said, 25 feet, should be 30. I'll go through the quick variance criterias. The variance not be contrary to public interest, and the spirit of the ordinance will be observed. There is no change for the public interest on this one. It's just a reuse of the existing footprint for the structure. There's no change for the health and safety of everybody, natural light and everything like that. There's no structure behind it. Peter Laughlin is my abutting neighbor behind me. It's all open space. By not changing the height of the structure or anything like that, I don't see it being any sort of an issue. For the abutting properties, substantial justice is done. There'd be no gain to the public by this, so it would only improve the property and the appeal of it. Part of the importance of this for us, this home's been around for 101 years. It's somewhat unique in its arts and crafts construction. That's a priority for us to make sure that any changes that we do exterior match that and is keeping with the character of the home. The values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. The project will have no negative impacts on the essential character of the home and the neighborhood. There's no evidence that the project would diminish any values. I think it could only increase the values by maintaining and improving the space. Literal enforcement would create a hardship. It's an old lot, it's 101 years old. The side setbacks and everything are adequate. It's just the front and the rear. The rear is of concern now. The dimensional requirements to prevent overcrowding of land, light, air, like I said earlier, it's just remaining in the same footprint. So there's no real relation between the general purpose of this and this specific application. I also think that bringing it back to a single-family home is more fitting with the neighborhood. And that's about all I got to say about that.
Okay. Are there questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, anyone who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition? 2, for, or against? Okay. The public hearing is closed. I just want to make sure you did see that there was another letter in favor dropped off right before the meeting from Peter Lockwood.
Not just a letter.
I know.
Yeah, it's a whole.
I know.
There's several.
The man knows what he's doing. Yes, there were several here. Okay. Yes, Mr.
Madam
Raymond.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the request as presented and advertised.
Second? Thank you, Mr. Neese.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I do think there is some fairly substantial additions that are going onto this property. However, the actual portion of concern to us for this small current rear deck that is being expanded upon vertically is not the most substantial portion that they're looking at. And as indicated, it is within the existing footprint. It's really just simply a somewhat modest vertical expansion of that. So, although I have a thought of entering Attorney Laughlin's letter into the record as our arguments for approving this, I will actually go through the criteria on my own. So, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, and granting the variance would observe the spirit of the ordinance. Again, is this in keeping with the neighborhood? Overall, as has been indicated, this is a relative modest back expansion on a house that's been around for a while, pretty typical of many of the properties in this neighborhood overall. So as a result, it's small, somewhat small expansion is not going to be anything that's going to stand out as being contrary to the general characteristics of the neighborhood. It is on the rear side of the property. It really would only be largely observable by the two neighboring properties, maybe from an angle by a passerby on one of the streets, but for the most part, relatively visible. Granting the variance would do substantial justice, again, the general public purposes of the ordinance in trying to maintain the setback. Is there anything there that outweighs the applicant's desire to make slightly better use of the available footprint that the house already has? And part of that is, as the applicant has pointed out, removing a fairly substantial egress structure as well. So, really there's already some structure that's going to be removed as part of this project. So the addition up to take somewhat better advantage of this footprint is not anything that is that the general public would have a better reason why it shouldn't happen. Granted, variance would not diminish the values of surrounding properties. I mean, overall, this is a tasteful addition in keeping with the residential character of the neighborhood. And then, again, for the purposes of the small addition that the applicant's talking about here, would not negatively impact property values. And then what are some of the special conditions? This property is kind of unique in the way that the properties are sort of subdivided here. In particular, it does have two neighbors that have unusually large lots, one of which is sort of got like a very long distance along sort of the Lawrence Kensington corner, and the home is sort of positioned way far away. In addition, the neighbor who provided the letter of support, Attorney Laughlin, has, his property also is unusually large, and again, the home is somewhat far away. So, the concerns that you might have about light and air are mitigated by the fortunate placing of the where the property lines end up in the neighboring homes. So that does create a situation where strictly applying the ordinance to this property doesn't make sense. It does have some unique characteristics. It is a modest expansion of an existing residential use, and is in keeping with the general character of the requirements for the zone as well as the neighborhood in general. So with that, I recommend approval.
Does the second have anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion before we vote? Okay. Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mannel?
Yes.
Mr. Rayam?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
No, Jeffrey. Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
I'll get it. And the chair votes yes. So you are all set. I should start with you. Okay, the next item of business is the request of Stephanie Casella and Finn Johnson, owners, for property located at 268 Dennett Street, whereas relief is needed to demolish and reconstruct an addition, which requires the following. 1, variance from section 10.521 to allow A 0-foot right side yard where 10 feet is required. B, 28.5% building coverage where 25% is the maximum. And 2, variance from section 10.321 to allow a non-conforming building or structure to be extended, reconstructed, or enlarged without conforming to the requirements of the ordinance. Said property is located on Assessor Map 143, Lot 13-1, and lies within the General Residence A District. Welcome.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is...
Shouldn't we recuse ourselves?
I think we should. We know her. Yeah.
Please don't. Members of the board, my name is Stephanie Casella. I'm here with my husband, Finn Johnson. We live at 268 Dennett Street. We are proposing a renovation project, which will require the demolition of the right side of our home. We are proposing to reconstruct it in the same footprint. In the interest of time, I'll be quick, but I'm happy to elaborate at any point if that's helpful. So as you can see in the picture that's up there, we have a raised sunroom with some breezeway space underneath. The house itself is pretty small. It used to be the garage to the house next door. It was converted into an in-law apartment, and then what we believe happened is through a restoration of involuntary merged lots, it was then created, or it was restored back to 2 lots. In 2011, there was a lot line adjustment because the original lot line went through the corner of the house, so the board granted a variance to allow for that 0-foot setback for the right side. We would like to just create more living space on the second floor and make that breezeway space into a livable conditioned area on the first floor. It's worth noting that there is an exterior door that empties into our neighbor's side yard. It's only accessible to that space from that yard. Why they decided to keep that, we're not really sure. And our roof on that side dumps everything into that side yard of 276 Dennett Street. We're proposing with the renovation that we tie the roof line into the existing roof line so that everything sheds onto our own property, and obviously we would be able to access that space from the interior after the renovation. That sums it up. I can move on to the variance criteria if that's helpful. All right. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest. The existing small single-family home will remain a small single-family home. There will be no change in the function or purpose of the home, and it will continue to have the same footprint. The spirit of the ordinance will be observed. The side yard areas are created to prevent overcrowding on residential lots. The existing footprint received a variance in 2017. I apologize, I think I said 2011 before. And therefore, the footprint is in conformance with the ordinance as it is. Furthermore, the existing 8-foot access easement, access and maintenance easement on the left side of 276 Dennett Street, serving our right side of our home, ensures that there will continue to be separation between those structures, and it works nicely with the building code as well. Substantial justice will be done. The benefit to the applicant will now not be outweighed by the harm to the public. The public will not notice any difference on how the property is being used currently, and the proposed changes, again, it's a single-family home. It will continue to be a single-family home with no increase in footprint. The values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. The changes proposed are small and are designed to improve current impacts to the neighboring property by removing the exterior door only accessible by the neighbor's yard and changing the roof line to shed water onto our own property. We believe this will positively impact our neighbors at 276 Dennett Street. As for the rest of the neighborhood, we do not expect these changes to diminish value or otherwise. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. The property has special conditions due to the existing footprint and unique history. Literal enforcement of the ordinance would not serve the property in a fair and substantial way, as it would prevent us from using the existing footprint in a sustainable way and force continued impact on our neighbors. The changes have a minimal impact, and we believe the proposed use is a reasonable one. I would like to add that should the board decide that the criteria are met, we would request a condition that would encompass us to allow for flexibility in window and door placement. Obviously these are our plans, but in working through the building permit process, we just want to be able to accommodate any requests and changes that may come of that.
Okay. Does anybody have questions for the applicant?
I do have one question.
Mr. Rossi.
In regards to the rear yard setback, looking at I just want to make sure I first of all understand where the lot line currently is drawn. Is it the page following the one where that shows the old lot line, like the dashed line cutting through the corner of the property? On the next page, there's site plan 268 Dennett Street. You see which one I'm talking? Yeah, that. I guess it's that one. And in the lower left portion of the lot line, as we look at it, that seems a lot closer to the rear of the structure than what is indicated in the current conditions.
So you're asking where the rear lot line is?
I know where. I think I know where the rear lot line is. It's pretty close to the house, right?
The rear lot line is this most distant line right here. This line, this line, and this line are considered sides.
So what about the darker line, like right there?
That would be considered a side, because the way that the ordinance is written, the rear lot line is the most distant parallel line.
So you don't need another, I just wanted to make sure you had everything you needed. Good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Opposition? Anybody for, or against? The public hearing is closed.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance as presented and advertised.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, and granting the variance would observe the spirit of the ordinance. Yeah, the purpose of let's see, hold on, let me go back to the actual variance request here. Give me 1 second, Stephanie and Madam
Okay,
Chair.
we're here.
Our bladders will hold.
Yeah. Oh, are you sure about that? You want me to slow down a little bit, David? Okay. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, and granting the variance would observe the spirit of the ordinance. I mean, the overarching fact here is that the footprint of the structure is not changing. The shape and the appearance of it is, but not in a way that really affects in any manner whatsoever the conformance with the spirit or the spirit of the ordinance, or affects the public interest. So those criteria are met. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. There is no loss to the public by changing the exterior appearance of the property. There's no encroachment on walkways or anything, anything at all that would affect the public. Therefore, denying the variance would result in a loss to the property owner that is not outweighed by a gain to the public, and that means this criterion is also satisfied. There would be no diminishing of the values of surrounding properties. There's been nothing presented to this board today to indicate that there's any negative impact on surrounding properties. I tend to agree with the presenter that modernizing and updating the look of this structure would probably have a positive impact on the surrounding properties. Therefore, I agree that this criterion has also been satisfied. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. The hardship of the property is the fact that the lot line was drawn after the structure was built and creates the zero setback that is impractical to change and would be a real hardship to the proper enjoyment of the property if it were to be literally enforced. The building coverage is not changing, so that is also not really in play here. So I would say that this criterion is also satisfied, and that is the extent of my motion.
Does the second have anything to add?
I do, just a little bit. So I was on the board back in 2017 when this came before us. It was kind of interesting. I mean, it was two lots of record that for decades were owned by the same people. The original home was set all the way on one of the lots. A garage had been built and then expanded upon over the years without lots of regard to the actual property line because they were in common ownership. When the time came in 2017 that there was a desire to split the ownership, they came before us with this plan. And one of the essential components to why the board approved it is the easement, the maintenance easement that is on the neighboring property. So that does, obviously a 0-foot lot line setback. One of our concerns is the ability to go and maintain that property. The easement allows for that. It's pretty extensive. Even gives, liability concerns are taken care of where, somebody can't come back and sue the neighbor if there's a problem that happens while maintaining the property. So with that, the board did approve this 0-foot lot line. What the applicant is proposing to do for a change here really doesn't fundamentally affect the nature of that approval. It's a very modest height increase, really just essentially changing the roof line. It's a sensible next step in the sort of the evolution of this structure from just a garage into what is really like a practical home, and making better use of this overall space on the Dennett Street. So with that, I recommend approval.
If I could just add, there was a comment about a stipulation for allowing flexibility in the window and door location, given that the footprint will remain the same. If the motion makers would.
Accepted.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's essential, but I'm fine to accept that as well. So that can be a stipulation.
Okay, any further discussion?
So what's the exact language of the stipulation?
The stipulation is that the windows may not be exactly where we're seeing them.
The applicant's granted flexibility
Yes,
to adjust
granted
doors and windows as construction details are finalized?
Yes, that's perfect.
There you go.
All right.
I was going to make a motion to amend, but Jeff beat me to it.
Well done.
Everyone approves of that
Yes.
language? Okay. All set? Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Rayam?
Yes.
Mr. Mantle?
Yes.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. You're all set. Keep that baby here till we adjourn.
Keep that baby here. Because we're going to need alternates soon.
Motion to adjourn?
So,
Let's stay.
Bye.
so moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.